So our practice is called Embodying Safety. And this was inspired by, I was listening to an Ayurveda podcast that I like, and it was talking about, how do we keep our peace of mind in this very crazy, chaotic world that we're living in right now. And, she was talking a lot about the news and how it's really basically designed to keep us in fear. It's got to keep us hooked, right? Keep us coming back for more. So it just tends to breed fear in us. So don't watch the news. But anyway, it was talking about, how we can create more feelings of safety in our body through working with Ayurveda and yoga. And of course, we know that certain types of practices maybe are going to kick us more into a sympathetic drive. And some of us, and I would say probably most of us, are in a more sympathetic dominant side of our nervous system, which means we're always in a little low level anxiety or a little low level fight flight. Trying to get everything done that we have to get done during the day is enough to keep us in that sympathetic drive. And to have a really healthy nervous system, we want our nervous system to be able to kind of fluctuate between sympathetic, parasympathetic throughout the day. But most of us are always in that sympathetic drive. So we become dominant in the sympathetic nervous system. And then as that continues, it sort of escalates itself. And then our normal is no longer here, our normal's here. And then if we keep at it, it keeps going higher. And then it's harder and harder for us to get back down to baseline. And so there are things that we can do in yoga that can either reinforce that sympathetic drive or start to counter it, right? And you guys know I love all kinds of yoga. I love doing a really strong, vigorous vinyasa flow practice when it's appropriate for me. But that style of yoga, if we're too fast and too unsteady and we're just pushing ourselves, striving, over-efforting, high intensity, that's not going to create a sense of safety in our nervous system and balance us out. Okay, so that has its purpose, not criticizing it because I like it and I do it, but this is not that practice tonight. And I always feel like when we get into these darker months of the year, when we're at the darkest time, we need to honor that and really give ourselves a little bit more, of this calming type of practice, especially as we're getting into holiday season and we've got more things to do on top of our everyday things we have to do. So how do we do that in yoga, right? Number one is we want to slow down because we're always at fast pace during our lives, right? So a slower practice is going to shift us more into parasympathetic, calm the nervous system, and make us feel safer. Lowering that intensity level. So maybe, noticing, I'm going to cue you guys on this tonight. When you come into a pose or a movement while we're doing our somatic work, how intense is the sensation? And the more intense that sensation is, sometimes we crave that. We want that deep feeling of stretch or whatever it is. But that's, again, going to keep us more in that sympathetic drive. So maybe can we back off on the high level of intensity of sensation? Even in something like a seated forward fold, it could be mild or it could be intense. So try it tonight. Just try seeing what it feels like to go a little less intense. Of course, certain poses are going to feel safer in the body than others. The ones that we're going to do tonight are a lot of inward focused poses. We're going to be a lot of belly down. We're not even going to, get up and do a lot of standing work tonight. I'm going to throw in some challenges just so you guys can work a little bit. But keeping those inward focused poses will feel safer to the nervous system versus like if we're standing and doing a drop back, that's going to feel more sympathetic drive. Also, we're opening the front of the body when we do something like that, which can bring up feelings of vulnerability, right? So even if we're in a restorative pose and we're open in our front, big, like kind of a back bend over bolster, that can feel vulnerable and feel unsafe for some of us. You know, a lot of softening into the poses, keeping our gaze less intense, working with the mouth and the relaxation of the tongue in the mouth. These are all little things that when we put them together are going to help the body come into feeling safe. And when we feel safe, the rest of the body functions better. You know, if we are in that striving, pushing, fight, flight mode, we have more risk of getting sick. You know, our immune system doesn't function as well as we talked about last week. Our digestion doesn't focus as well, or doesn't work as well. So when we are in that more safe space and parasympathetic, that's when the body can do its good work of healing. Because if we're running from a danger and we're under threat, you know, all of our resources need to go to staying alive. It's survival. And a lot of us live in survival mode. So once we shift, then the body has that resource, that energy to heal whatever it needs healing. So any questions, comments before we get to the mat? Okay. All right, so we're going to start in child's pose. So when you're ready, you can go to your mat and come into child's pose. I'm going to go mute, and I'll meet you back there in a moment. Okay, so do make sure you have something for a bolster for later. I have a blanket down. I have some blocks, a pillow, a couple of blankets, and that's all we'll need tonight. Okay, so child's pose is an inward focused pose. Most of us feel pretty safe in it, unless of course, you know, we have any problems with our knees. And if you do, feel free to come flat on your belly into more of a crocodile pose. If you have music and you want to get that started, feel free to start your music. And start to come into a soft breath. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm always telling you guys that, you know, regulating our breath is so important. And this practice is no different. Once we regulate the breath, we're going to feel safer. As a culture, we tend to favor our inhalation phase, and that can kind of create that vicious cycle of more feelings of stress, anxiety, and even panic if we're too much in that state. So let's slow the breath and soften the breath. Now, eventually we're going to focus more on our exhales, but let's save that for a little bit later. But just adding on to that, the exhale phase, when we lengthen it, it will help us feel safer. Because if you think about it, if we are running from a threat of any kind, and that threat could be physical, or it could be, you know, our computer malfunctioning or a deadline, whatever it might be, we're going to need to inhale more to meet the demand on us, especially if we are running from something. So we'd be breathing heavier, right? So if we're slowing down our exhale, we wouldn't really be able to do that if we were literally running from a threat. So slowing your breath down and focusing on your exhale is going to feel safer in the body. Now, if your arms are out in front of you, go ahead and stack your palms up and rest your forehead on your palms. And then once you have that, allow your hips to gently rock side to side in your child's pose. And we'll do some rocking motions tonight. We've talked about rocking motions before, how that can be calming for our nervous system. Just like when we rock a child, or we sit and rock in a chair, or we swing in a swing, those kinds of things can be very lulling, like a lullaby for our system. And then go ahead and pause your hips and then gently roll your head across your palms side to side. So just getting a little warm up into the neck region. And then go ahead and pause your head, come back into stillness in your child's pose. We'll have some moments of stillness as well. Right? When we're in danger, we don't usually stay still unless we're in freeze mode or fawn mode. But being in stillness with a nice soft breath, that can be another safety signal to the body. Okay, let's go ahead and make our way into our tabletop position, coming into all fours, and not going into cat-cow just yet. First, let's take a moment and just really press your palms down, feel all your finger pads pressed down, and be mindful of feeling every finger pad. So we start to bring some subtle awareness into our bodies, into the present moment. And then keeping your spine neutral, we're just going to start some head movement. So as you inhale, start to lift your gaze and notice as you lift your gaze where the sensation is. If you're kinking your neck, I want you to back off a little bit and see if you can get that sensation more into your middle upper back. And then go ahead and lower your chin and look down as if you're going to look between your legs. Lengthen the back of your neck. And let's repeat that. Inhale, the gaze lifts without kinking your neck. And then exhale, let your head come down. Now let's bring that into our cat-cow. So as you inhale now, let the spine arch. And again, lift your gaze without kinking your neck. And then exhale, round your spine, look back towards your legs, and continue. And keep going with a nice soft breath. And moving at that slow pace. So tonight, less is more. And then as you're doing this, can you maybe make the movement a little bit less? So instead of going to that 100% full range, can you just back off just slightly? And when you back off just slightly, notice what that feels like to not go all the way. Sometimes, you know, we're, like I said, we're craving that deeper experience. But making it a little more subtle, it's going to change how it feels in the nervous system. After this next one, come back to neutral and back to your child's pose. And then go ahead and slide forward onto your belly. Stack your palms up and rest your forehead on your stacked palms, just like we did in our child's pose. And then gently rock your hips from right to left. And then roll your head right to left. Come back to center. Tuck your chin in so that the crown of your head lengthens, back of your neck lengthens. Reach through your legs. Keep your tailbone drawing a little down. So you're lengthening your lower back. And we're going to start to lift the head and not lift the chin at all. So lift through the back of your head and don't lift your chin. And then lower back down. And we're going to do a few rounds like that. Lift the back of the head. Notice in your spine where you're feeling any contraction. And lower back down. One more of these. Good, pause for a breath. And then prop up into Sphinx posture, lining your elbows up under your shoulders, your wrists in line with your elbows. And we're gonna work with the neck again. So it's very tempting to really kind of throw our head back and then we kink the neck. That's an alerting feeling in the nervous system. So we want to keep that back of the neck long. So as you inhale, your gaze is forward, but not kinking the neck. And as you exhale, you're going to look down and lengthen the back of the neck. Inhale, bring that gaze forward and up. Exhale, lower it back down. And let's do that one more time. Bringing the gaze back to neutral, staying here, and then look over your right shoulder. Back to center, look over your left shoulder. And just take a few rounds side to side. And now notice as you turn your head, what the sensation is like in your neck. And just like we did before, can you make the movement a little smaller? So that the sensation you're feeling is pretty mild. I think we live in a culture that really kind of reinforces our craving for intensity. Just look at the kind of television shows, things like that. There's so much violence and activity and action. Like hardly ever any shows that are just kind of calm and nice to watch anymore, I find. So it reinforces that need for more. Come back to center and let's go ahead and pause. Come all the way down. And maybe you feel like rocking your hips or windshield wipering your shin bones. And then from here, slide your hands back underneath your shoulders and press back up into tabletop position. All right, I'm gonna flip around here. Take your right arm, reach it out to the side. We're gonna do thread the needle, take that arm through and bring your head to the floor. And then I know sometimes we do the wrap, but let's go ahead and leave that hand on the floor. So your left hand on the floor. And we're gonna do a little rocking motion here. So push into that palm on the floor and roll your chest a little bit up toward the ceiling, look up toward the ceiling, and then rock back to start. And just kind of rock in and out of this thread the needle rather. A few more rounds. That's nice, soothing, rocking motion. One more. Good. Now stay here. And you're welcome to keep that palm on the floor or now take that wrap. And wrap the arm around your back. And notice how intense the sensation is. And if you're feeling like it's pretty intense in your neck, give yourself permission to put that palm back on the ground. Take another full breath. And then if you've taken that wrap, release the hand down and step your left leg out to the side. So now we're in our thread the needle with the leg out to the side. And then again, push in your palm, roll your chest up toward the ceiling, and then back down. So we have another little rocking session. Take 3 or 4 of those. Maybe a little more freedom to move with that leg out to the side. Of course, if it's too much, bring that knee back in. And then stay here, come back to stillness. Maybe take the wrap again. Wrap that arm around your back. Again, notice the level of intensity. Maybe you start to take that top shoulder back and look up. but maybe not. Let's take a nice full cycle of breath here. And then slowly release the palm back down. Keep the leg out to the side and slowly come up into tabletop position. With that leg out to the side, walk yourself forward into puppy pose. If that head doesn't make it to the floor, feel free to put a block or a blanket underneath your head. The option to stay there in puppy another breath or two, or sit back on your heel, coming into a deeper stretch. Again, be aware of the intensity level here for yourself. Send your breath into your back body. And then back up into table, step that leg back in, and let's come back to child's pose. This time in your child's pose, bring your knees together and sweep your arms behind you if that's comfortable. And it allows for a little bit more rounding of your spine and your shoulders. Let's take a few breaths there. So a lot of times if we are stuck in a more sympathetic drive, we could have some tension in our spine. We could have narrowing of the spinal muscles, kind of squeezes in toward the spinal column, encouraging more of a fight-flight reaction. So by letting the spinal muscles spread away from the spine here and soften, that can be really soothing. So imagine that your spinal muscles are spreading away from your spine as you breathe. Okay, let's go ahead and come up and do our thread the needle series on the other side. So starting a table, inhale your left arm out to the side and thread it through. Let's keep both knees down for this first round. And starting with your palm on the floor, add your little rocking in and out. It's a slight movement. Yeah, so you might not be able to see because I'm not moving a lot, but I'm just pushing into my palm and rolling my chest a little open toward the ceiling and then rolling back toward the floor. Okay, come back to stillness and either stay there or find your wrap. And breathe. Keep that subtle awareness to what you're feeling, the level of intensity. Back off as needed. All right, go ahead, release your palm back to the floor and extend your right leg out to the side. Find your rocking in and out, rolling your chest open and closed. So now with that leg out to the side, you might find a little more movement. Only go so far into this rock that it feels safe. You don't want to feel like you're going to roll out of the pose. And then come back to pause and either stay with your hand on the floor or go for your wrap once again. Take a couple of breaths. Take a nice long exhalation. And then release, bring your hand back down, bring yourself into puppy pose. Legs still out to the side, walk those arms forward. And mostly here our hips are up. They're not back yet like child's pose, although we'll get there if you like. This can be demanding on the shoulders. Feel free to bend your arms. And then staying there or shifting back, sit back on your heel for that deeper stretch. Only if that feels safe in your body. If that's too much, stay where you are. Walk yourself back up toward table, step that foot back in. Come back to child's pose. This time, keep the arms forward and walk yourself over to the right, coming into a child's pose twist. Maybe your left palm comes on top of your right palm, and your head might rest right between your arms. You might notice as you take 3 breaths here that there's a slight rocking motion as you breathe in and breathe out. After your 3rd breath, go ahead and make your way over onto the other side. Walk it over to the left. Maybe the right palm is on top. Walk it back to the center, and we're sliding forward onto the belly again. Now from here, we're going to roll onto our right side. So roll onto your side, bend your knees, and grab something for under your head. So you're going to want a pillow or folded up blanket. And just like a little fetal curl on your side here. Bring your top hand somewhere on your top body. So hip, rib cage, wherever you can. And we're gonna just take our hand somewhere around the hip area and rock your hip back and forth. So you're starting a very mild twist. Rock in and out of that twist. Maybe your gaze goes up toward the ceiling and then back down toward the floor. Now take your hand onto your rib cage and roll the rib cage open. So now you go a little deeper into that twist. And then back, forward, roll toward the floor, and you get a stretch behind the back of that bottom shoulder blade. Maybe as you roll open, your elbow might reach the floor, maybe not. And just rock in and out. Good. Now, keeping the hand where it is, but now keep the rib cage still for a moment. Roll your head open to the back, and then your rib cage is going to follow, then your hip is going to follow. You open into that twist, and now let's bring the head back first. Turn your head, and then eventually your rib cage follows, and your hip follows, and you roll toward the floor. Again, start with your head. Turn your head open first. Roll open, roll open. Rib cage follows, hip follows. And then bring your head back first. Roll all the way back. All right, now just roll in and out however you like, but let's make it a little bit smaller. So let's back off of the intensity and just make it very subtle and just be with that subtleness. Maybe your eyes could close if that feels safe for you, and you're just going to take a gentle rock, but not go to that full range. And that backing off just creates that feeling of safety and builds trust between your body, your mind, your nervous system. Let's have an arm movement. So take that top palm and slide it to meet the bottom palm. And slide it all the way past the bottom palm. And then come across your chest and open up into a T. And let's do that 2 more rounds. Slide the palm back, past your bottom palm, and then open it up into a T. One more time. And this next time, we're gonna hold the twist open. So maybe slide your right shoulder a little to the right. See if you could get both shoulders, both arms to the floor. And if your top shoulder does not meet or reach the floor, maybe you want to drape your arm over your top hip. So we don't have a dangling arm. We don't want it just hanging out in the air. That's going to feel stress and strain in the body. Let's take 3 nice, slow, deep breaths here. Start to follow your exhale all the way out. Maybe even have a little pause at the bottom of that exhale. 2 more rounds. All the way out. One more time. And as you exhale all the way out, just really soften everything into the ground. And then from here, after you finish that last exhale, bring your palm back around and let's roll to the belly and take a pause. Maybe give those hips a little wiggle again. Okay, let's try that whole series on side 2. So you're gonna roll onto your left side, stack your knees up, support your head and neck, and then start with your hand on the hip. And we're gonna start our rocking the hip forward and back. So it's a lot easier to create feelings of safety when we're on the ground, when we're moving slowly, but as we start to get into the next part of the practice, it might be a little more challenging to maintain those feelings of safety as we start to work a little bit more. So just really establishing this feeling of safety now while we're on the ground. And then hand to the rib cage, roll that rib cage open. Maybe the elbow comes to the floor. And then roll back, chest and head come toward the floor. And rock in and out a few times, deepening that twist a bit. Then come back and pause on your side. Now we move from the head, start to turn your head to the back wall, and then your ribs follow, your hips follow, and you open into that twist. And then bring your head back first. And as your head turns, the ribs start to follow and the hip starts to follow. And let's do that one more time. Go from your head. And then bring the head back first. And then go ahead and rock in and out of that twist however you'd like, but make it a little smaller. Maybe you're going from your head or your ribs or your hip. And see if you could find a bit of subtlety in the level of sensation.
And when you're ready, adding on that arm movement. So we're gonna slide the top palm past the bottom palm and then bring it all the way across your chest, open up into a T. And then bring it back across. We'll do 2 more rounds and then hold the twist. Okay, so now open that arm out to a T if you can. If it's not making it to the floor, let it rest on your body. Maybe pull the left shoulder a little to the left so you can really turn the chest open. And breathe here, noticing what the level of sensation is in your lower back. And if it's too much, come back out of that twist a little bit, so that it's not quite so intense for your lower back. Follow your exhales all the way out. Let's take one more breath. And then go ahead and bring your arm back around and roll back onto your belly. Take a pause, maybe give your hips a little wiggle, windshield wipers, whatever feels good there. And then coming back into Sphinx pose, propping yourself back up. So we'll add a little core work on just to keep some challenge in the practice, but I encourage you to listen to your body. So just starting first with a little cat-cow in Sphinx. So inhale, maybe contracting the upper back, gazes forward. Exhale, chin comes down, and now maybe you're gonna peel your navel off the floor a bit. Inhale, looking forward. Watch the neck. Exhale, round in. Maybe getting that abdomen off the floor. One more. Now you can stay with this, continue with this, or we're gonna add on our Sphinx roll-ups. So we inhale in position. Exhale, start to round, lift your ribs, your navel, your thighs, and make it all the way to the tops of your knees, fleshy part. Hold it and tuck your tailbone under, creating that strength in your lower abs. Hold it, and when you're ready, release, come back down slowly, thighs come down, hips, navel, and look forward. And we're gonna do a few of those. Inhale forward, and you can stick with cat-cow if that's better for you. Peel up, come into the pose, and then tuck, tailbone down, till you feel those lower abs turning on. And then release. Let's do one more round on your own. Good, and then take a little rest, pause. So that one is really good for fixing what's called the anterior pelvic tilt. A lot of us have it. And an anterior pelvic tilt can create tightness in our spine. It can encourage more of a fight-flight response, more of that sympathetic drive. So correcting our pelvic tilt can be really important to how we feel somatically. Okay, come back to Sphinx. You can stay here, or we're gonna find a dolphin plank. So dolphin plank, we're gonna tuck our toes, lift the knees, lift the hips. Try not to pike your hips up. Stay in a straight line. Dip your tailbone down. You can always come to your knees. So later in the day, you might be fatigued. Watch out for that excess strain. Listen to your body. Last breath here. And come all the way down and rest. In the rest, you're welcome to be still, or you're welcome to do a little movement of your hips or your shins. We're going to take one more round, just like that, and perhaps add something on. Come back to your Sphinx. Tuck your toes. Lift up. And then either stay there or walk your feet together and do a little hip dip to one side. Roll to the outer edge of your feet. One side, then the other. And if that's too much, put your knees down and try it that way. Or skip it. And when you're ready, release. Nice inhale, full exhale. And then slide your hands back, press back up into your tabletop position, back to your child's pose. So most of this practice so far has been belly down. We did that little side twist, but most everything else has been belly down so far. Widen your knees if they're together, walk over to the right. And then thread the needle child's pose. Take your left hand behind your right, bring your head to the floor. You might stay there, or you might wrap that top arm around your back. Again, noticing the level of intensity. Can you keep it on the milder side? Can you still maintain a nice soft breath? You feel a lot of strain, then back out, keeping that palm on the floor, or maybe just keeping your arms extended as well and not going into the thread the needle. Okay, release back to center. Walk yourself over to the other side, thread the arm through. Maybe that palm stays on the floor. Maybe you take the wrap. All right, go ahead, release, come back through the center, and then back up into tabletop position. Okay, let's extend the right leg straight back behind you, lift it up, take an inhale, exhale, knee to nose, round your spine with a nice long exhale, push through your palms, and then inhale, extend the leg, exhale, round, knee to nose. One more time, extend it back. And this time, step that foot all the way through to the outside edge of your mat, coming into lizard pose. Okay, hold it here for a moment. And then we're going to take our left palm a little bit forward of the shoulder and bring your right hand onto your right thigh, coming into a twist. And you might want to watch for a moment. We're going to do a little hip dip. So what you do is we're going to start to roll toward the left hip and let that hip come to the ground and look back toward your foot and see if you could straighten the leg. Okay, do the best you can. And then you're going to roll back into your lizard. And then repeat. Let that hip drop. Maybe the foot turns out. Maybe you reach your arm back. And then come back around towards your lizard pose. One more time. Open up into that hip dip twist and stay here. Maybe you want to let your hand rest down. Watch that shoulder of the front arm. Keep it back. Don't let it dip forward. Keeping that shoulder safe. Take another breath here. And then we're going to come back around into lizard pose. And you're going to hold your lizard. You're either going to stay here, or you can use your props to come down onto your forearms. Maybe you want to have blocks under your forearms. Maybe your forearms make it all the way to the floor. And again, watch that level of intensity. If you're craving more, you know, you could lift that back knee, but I would encourage you to maybe do less tonight. Less is more. Let's take 3 breaths and hold those, not hold, but follow those exhales all the way out. You might bring in Ujjayi breath if that's in your practice, a little constriction in the back of your throat. We'll slow that breath down even more. And then from here, after that last exhale, walk your hands back up if you came into your deeper lizard, and walk your foot back to center. Actually, grab your blocks if they're not nearby. And place the blocks underneath your hands, which are underneath your shoulders. And we come into a low lunge, okay? And then from here, go ahead and rock the hips back, straighten the front leg any amount. And then rebend into the front knee. And just do a little rocking lunge. Shift back. And shift forward. One more time. Now we're going to come into that straight leg position and hold it. So coming into like a half split, keeping those blocks underneath your shoulders. Be mindful of level of sensation. You might decide you want to come into a deeper fold. So some of you might be able to lose your blocks and fold over that leg. Again, listen to your body. Keep that sensation on the milder side. If we overstretch, then we're going to activate that stretch reflex, and then things might tighten up because the body doesn't feel safe. If we do more of a gentle sensation, we're building that trust. One more breath. We're going to go ahead and rebend into that front knee. Grab your blocks, place your blocks back up on the highest level. And then we'll tuck the toes and lift the back knee. So we're now in a lunge with the back knee up. Okay. Now I'm okay on my blanket. If you guys need to take it off, feel free. We're going to be doing a little bit more work here that's not really standing all the way up, but more active work. And then same thing, inhale forward, exhale, straighten the front leg. And let's repeat. Bend the knee, inhale, exhale, straighten the leg. One more of these. And then stay with a straight leg. You can stay up high, or you could lower your blocks, or you could bring your hands to the floor. Again, being mindful of the level of sensation. Can you bring your chin in and lengthen the back of your neck? Really feel the ground beneath your feet. That grounding sensation helps us feel safer, our connection to the earth. Follow your exhale all the way out. One last breath. And then bring your knee back down to the floor. When you're ready, step your foot back, child's pose. So tempering all that activity now with another moment of rest before we go to side two. Okay, starting from the top, we're coming back to tabletop position. Extend your left leg back, lift it up, take an inhale, exhale, knee to nose, round your spine. Nice long exhales, 2 more. And then after this next one, let's step that leg forward to the outside of your mat, to the side, coming into your lizard pose. And we're gonna do that little hip dip twist. So take your right palm a little forward of your shoulder, left hand onto your left thigh, and then we start to roll open to the left, let your right hip dip down, maybe straighten that leg, push out through your heel, and come back around towards your lizard. 2 more of those, and then we'll hold it. Last one, stay there for an extra breath or 2, keeping your front shoulder back. And then coming all the way back around, and find your version of lizard pose to hold for a few breaths. So you might stay up on your hands. You might bring your forearms to blocks, or you might come all the way down to the ground. Another option, if you feel like it's still strenuous, you could always put a bolster down and stick your blocks on top of the bolster. That would make it even a little more mild. Let's hold for a few breaths. Coming into those nice long inhales, remember you have the option to lift the back knee if you want that intensity. Follow your exhales all the way out. So even though we're working a little harder, we're still focusing on our breath. We're still monitoring the level of sensation, and we're going slowly. All right, go ahead and walk it back to center, and we're going to come up on our blocks. Are you ready for those half splits? So we're going to take an inhale here, and as you exhale, straighten your front leg, shift back. And then let's continue. Hips drop, inhale, exhale, move back. Let's do one more and then we'll hold it. So staying now with the straight leg, a half split pose. You can stay upright if this is already a lot of sensation. Feel free to lower your blocks. Feel free to bring your hands to the floor. And then just keep that sensation on the milder side. So I like to use the analogy of the red light, yellow light, green light. So green light would be like easy peasy, no sensation, like you're not getting much out of it. Red light, it's really a zinger, it's too much. Find that yellow light zone. One more breath all the way out. And then we're going to rebend into that front knee, grab your blocks, come back up on your blocks. And now we'll tuck the back toes, come up into a lunge with the knee off the ground. And then same thing, inhale in the bent knee position, and then shift back, straighten the leg. And let's do 2 more and then we'll hold. Stay here. Feel the ground beneath you, root your feet down, hug your inner thighs in. We create that feeling of safety by grounding and hugging in. Maybe you're gonna lower or lose your blocks. And if folding is too much, stay up in that more of the halfway lift position. And let the chin come in, back of the neck free. Maybe let your head loose, shake it out. A lot of times we come into these folds and we have that kink in our neck. All right, let's go ahead, rebend the knee, drop the back knee down, slide your foot back, and child's pose. Very nice. Okay, when you're ready, back up in the tabletop position. We have still stayed very close to the ground tonight. We're going to take pigeon pose next. So if pigeon is too intense for you, feel free to do a figure 4 on your back. But otherwise, we're going to slide the right knee to the right wrist. Take your left leg back behind you. Stay up for a moment. And then hug your hips in toward the middle, squaring your hips forward. You can stay up, or you might be able to fold over your legs to get a big hip stretch. You have your blocks there. Maybe you want to put your forehead on a block. Some of us, this is intense for the knee, so you could also stick a block right underneath your right sit bone, give you a little bit of a lift. So listen to your body. And then have a sense of softening in here, like really let go, surrender into the ground. Imagine you could breathe through all the pores of your body. Our body is always kind of scanning our surroundings to see if we're safe. It's called neuroception. And we know that sometimes we sense something and the hair of our arms is kind of stands up, right? So even through our pores, our hair follicles, we're sensing things through our system, through our skin. So imagine you could breathe through your whole body. One more breath, follow that exhale all the way out. You might notice those exhales have gotten even longer since the beginning of practice. Now we'll start to make our way back up onto the palms, and we're going to take the back leg and swing it around to the front. So shift towards your front sit bone, swing that back leg around, come into a cross leg position. And then take your arms out wide and take your right arm on top, give yourself a big hug. And then drop your chin to your chest. And then while you're here, as you inhale, think about pulling your shoulders forward, opening your upper back. And breathe into your upper back. Gently lift your chin back up, take an inhale, and as you exhale, start to hinge forward. Maybe those elbows rest on your legs. Maybe they come toward the floor. And like gravity, draw your shoulder blades apart. Breathe into your upper back. If you're close enough to the ground, you might even grab a block and put your head on a block. And then let your arms go and stay in that fold for a few breaths. Just breathe into your back body. Good, and then we're gonna very slowly start to come up. Take your right leg and see if you can come into Gomukhasana. So now we cross at the knees. And if this is too much, you're gonna repeat the cross leg fold. Sometimes it's helpful to sit up on a block here if this is too intense for you and your hips. And then we're gonna inhale, sit up as tall as you can, lengthen. And as you exhale, come back into the fold. And now you get a little pressure in your belly from that top leg. Maybe a little deeper hip stretch. Option to have blocks under your head or just let your head release. Send your breath into your back body. Talk about this, how our adrenals take that fight flight and increase our adrenaline. So we might just breathe into the adrenals. Good. Slowly bring yourself up. Lean back, unwind your legs, do a little windshield wiper side to side. And then we'll repeat pigeon pose from the left. So come around into your tabletop position. Slide the left knee toward your left wrist. Right leg straight if you can. Remember, you can add in something underneath your left hip as some support. And then when you're ready, go ahead and hug the hips in towards center before folding forward. And maybe you want to rest your head on some support. It could be on your arms, the ground, a block. Breathing with your whole body and follow those exhales all the way out. Take your time, walk yourself back up. Take the back leg, swing it around to the front, coming into cross leg, left leg in front. Okay, inhale your arms out wide. And let's take the left arm on top this time, big shoulder hug. Drop your chin down and breathe into the back, right between your shoulder blades. Maybe pull with your arms a little bit. And then lift your gaze, take an inhale, and as you exhale, start to fold forward. Keep a hold of the shoulders for a few breaths. So gravity starts to pull those shoulders forward, opening your back. Maybe your head goes to a block. And eventually relax the arms back down. Slowly walking yourself up, coming into Gomukhasana. See if we can stack up the knees, the feet coming up to the side. And if this is too intense, go back to cross legs or add in a little prop, sit up on a pillow or a block. And you can certainly stay in a vertical position or inhale, lengthen up tall. Exhale, fold over the leg and feel that compression in the abdomen from the top leg. Breathe against it so that that breath comes into the back body. All right, very, very slowly starting to bring yourself up. Uncross the legs. The windshield wiper, release that work. Okay, let's go ahead and grab your bolster, or if you have no bolster, you're going to use a stack of pillows, maybe 2 or 3 pillows stacked up, depending on your pillow. You want it to be several inches high, maybe like 6 inches. And we're going to come into downward facing frog. So we lay our belly on the bolsters, another belly down pose. And some of you might want to have something for your head, like a block there, or you can just let your head kind of turn to the side. I like the block. The knees are wide, and you turn your toes out like little frog feet, and we open up the hips here. Now, remember, go for that yellow light sensation. So if this is very intense, you might want to back off. Maybe you want to bring your knees in a little closer and not turn your feet out. But if you can go into that full pose, nice wide knees, and breathe. Again, the bolster gives you a little belly compression so that you could breathe a little bit more into your back. Follow your exhale all the way out. And then we're going to bring the feet back in, slide your hands back, and we'll come into supported child's pose. So slide your bolster pillows in between the legs and see maybe if you might want to hug your bolster and turn your head to one side. You can also just let your arms rest alongside. Surrender into the props. Your head is turned one way. Go ahead and switch your head. And then come back to center. Love to keep you there longer, but we're already going to end a little bit late. So we're going to slide your bolster across the other direction. And then maybe you want to have some blankets, pillows, sandbags. We're going to get ready for Shavasana. But first, you might want to do a little knee hug, a little happy baby pose. So take a moment and finish up It'd be nice to soothe that lower back with some more rocking sensations here. And if you like Happy Baby, that feels good for you, go ahead and try that for a couple breaths. Take your time, go ahead and let your legs drape over your bolster. And decide maybe if you want some weight over your body. Sometimes now we're first time belly up, we're mostly belly down. So again, this might feel like a vulnerable position. So if you have a weighted blanket or even just a nice heavy blanket, you could put it over your whole body or maybe just over your hips and pelvis. You've got a sandbag or some weight, you might also put that across your hips, thighs, or belly, wherever it feels good. And I'm going to give you guys a few moments to settle before we do a little guided meditation. So make any final adjustments so you can feel warm, relaxed, safe. Come into a soft, relaxed breath. And start to follow those exhales all the way out. Let's take a few more rounds of breath with those nice long exhales. And then we'll start our visualization practice by bringing to mind your safe space. Maybe it's your favorite room in your home or a place from your childhood. It could be somewhere outdoors, in the forest or by your favorite tree. So bring to mind whatever that safe space is for you. And in your mind, picture your surroundings. Maybe you'll have some of your favorite comfort items with you. Your favorite cozy blanket. Your favorite fuzzy socks. Maybe your favorite fur baby curling up next to you or on you. And start to be aware of any sounds. And maybe they're the actual sounds around you in this moment, or maybe thinking about sounds that bring you comfort. Maybe your loved one's voice sharing some comforting thoughts. Or maybe it's the sound of gentle rain outside, or the soft sound of snowfall. Maybe it's the birds and the trees or the ocean. What sounds bring you comfort? And shifting to imagining some scents that bring you comfort. For some of us, it's something delicious baking in the oven. Maybe those comforting smells from your favorite grandma's house, or maybe it's the smell of the rain. So thinking about smells that bring you comfort. Maybe it's your favorite oil blend, like a lavender. Or your favorite candle. Notice the feeling, the texture on the ground, the blankets around you. Maybe imagining a source of warmth, and that could be a crackling fire or the sun shining on you. Feel that sense of warmth, because when we are cold, we often don't feel as safe. Our tissues will tighten up against the cold. So relax into that warmth. And maybe imagine someone, your safe person, maybe that person who gives the best hugs. And maybe imagine their warm embrace around you, giving you that wonderful hug. Maybe it's something from your spiritual tradition. Spiritual figure that gives you support and helps you feel safe. And we might repeat the words, I am safe. I am secure. I am held in this moment. And it is safe to let go. With every exhale, find yourself releasing a little bit more into the ground. Now take your time. You're going to come back to awareness, but try not to move just yet. Take a couple of deeper breaths. When you feel a little more energy coming in, start with just little movements in your fingers and your toes. Gradually let that evolve into some bigger movement. With no hurry. Try not to disturb this feeling of safety and peace. And take your time, make any additional movement before coming onto your side, and have that pause before coming up to sit. And we'll find our way into a nice tall spine. And bring the palms together in front of your heart. And we'll take an inhale, exhale, bow in. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.